Hey, everyone. Before we get started with this episode of the Flush Studios podcast, where I sit down with Jeff Frumess, and talk about filmmaking, black and white movie making. We both have black and white films. We talk about sound design. We talk about all sorts of filmmaking things. This is a very filmmaker-heavy episode, so if you're interested in the nuances of low-budget or no-budget filmmaking, this episode is for you. But before we get started with that, got to do a little plug. Jesus Christ. Patreon.com/Flush Studios. That is how you support the films that I'm making. That's how you support Flush Studios in general. And I'm trying to get The Good Exorcist, the animated series, off the ground. So if that interests you at all, go subscribe for $5, $10, whatever you can give a month. It goes so far in helping Flush Studios push forward, create new content, and allows me the opportunity to tell some of the stories that I want to tell. Thanks! All right, and welcome to the Flush Studios podcast. I am your host, Josh Stifter, and this week I'm joined by another filmmaker. This has been awesome. I've been able to get feature filmmakers on the podcast again. I felt like I was struggling to get feature filmmakers on, and I but I was branching out to other art forms and other things, and that was great, and it is what it is, and I had a great time with it. But there's something about talking to feature filmmakers that to me it's all I want to talk about. Let's be honest, folks. I always bring it back to feature films because that's all I really care about doing. This week, I'm joined by a dude that I was on his podcast or show a while ago, and since then, he's put out a movie, and I'm excited to talk to Jeff Frumess. Introduce yourself, man.
Hi. So firstly, I owe you an apology because that interview never aired or has yet to air. It will someday. I've stockpiled so many recordings with people like yourself and never ended up doing anything with them because my distribution strategy changed. So I just wanted to put that out there, and that someday that will drop, just not this moment.
That'll be hilarious. When that drops, I don't know, I think that was a year ago we talked or something like that. Mm-hmm. And 10 years from now, you can drop it as a bonus feature on Romeos Distress Ultimate Collector's Edition or something.
We'll see. I mean, that's what I'm sort of knee deep in. That's the struggle. That's part of the struggle, I should say, right now. But
is figuring out what's going to happen. So, first off, introduce yourself a little bit. Who are you? Why am I talking to you? Okay,
so. My name is Jeff Frumess, and I am.
That's how you say it, Frumess?
Yeah. I'm one of those people. I'll never correct you, even if you're punching in the code to the ejector seat that's going to save my life.
Right.
As the plane is going down, I'm not going to correct you. I'm just sort of going to just go, oh, yeah. Because it just doesn't, it's not important to me.
Me neither. But now that I look at it, I'm like, that's how it's spelled. It's spelled like Frumess. But I guess it's not a typical name. I get Stifler all the time.
I see your name and I think Stifler. Honestly, I think I might have I don't think I've said your name out loud ever, but I think every time I read your name, I read it as Josh Stifler. So there you go.
And I totally won't correct people either. Unless it specifically needs to be corrected because they're spelling it incorrectly, and I'm like, it's actually Stifter. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that makes people uncomfortable, or that makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel awkward to go, oh, no. Actually, it's Jeff Frumess. It's just I feel like I'm taking myself too seriously or something. So I just don't. I have to go the complete opposite direction. If you want to call me sissy pissy pants, then I'll roll with.
You'll
sissy,
just roll with
pants.
it.
Yeah, I have sissy pissy pants.
When I was on Rebel Without a Crew, I made it I think we were 4 days in. And someone off to the side, I think it was when we were doing casting. So we were 3 days into the show, but we were 3 weeks into dealing with El Rey Network. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I was in a sassy mood. They weren't letting us sleep at all, and I was being shitty. And I just turned to them, and I'm like, why does everyone keep calling me Josh? It's John. And like you could just see all of the producers' faces drop, and they're just like, "Shut the fuck up." Like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, it's John Staffler. That's my name. And then, of course, Scarlett started laughing, or someone else started laughing, and then they just kind of let it roll. But I am totally with you. It's not worth the effort, really. But now's your chance to correct me.
Going back to the that Little Talk of Horrors video podcast thing that you were on, what ended up happening was I shot 37 episodes in 3 weeks. I was planning on launching a crowdsourcing campaign. I had a ton of editing to do.
And what was the crowdsourcing campaign for?
So that was so I actually shot Romeos Distress before that. That Romeos Distress came out a long time ago, but it came out digitally. And what I've been trying to do, or what my struggle is now, and what I'm trying to do as I'm trying to launch my second feature is called Wash Away. That's what I'm knee deep in. But what I'm toiling away in is how to do a proper physical release, because part of the amazing benefit of shooting a micro budget feature is if you can foot the bill, then you own your work in its entirety.
Dude, 100%.
Yeah, so I own that movie. What, good, bad, whatever, whether you hate it or love it or whatever, I own it. And my plan is that I want to never not own it. And so I'm trying to figure out what's the best way. And because it was so cheap to make, I'm like, well, and because it's like really also partially like a calling card, like I'm trying to like, establish a brand or put my name out there, or just try to, lay down like the foundation beneath the bedrock, as you try to slowly build yourself up, or in whatever you're trying to do as a creative.
Right.
I'm just like, what is the best thing to do? What is the best thing I could do with this thing? And I'm just like, you need to press this up yourself, and you need to do what Black Flag did with music. You need to establish a creepy crawl trail. But instead of like touring your movie, what that means is like find brick and mortar stores that are still in existence, like video stores, like across the United States, and cold call them and go, "Hi, I'm an independent filmmaker, and I made this little movie, and I love your store, and I would love to be affiliated with you guys. And, just in the way that you're trying to keep your thing alive, I would love to contribute to that by giving you, some homemade independent content. Would you be interested in buying a copy or two?" And build a database.
Yeah.
And if I could build a database, then we could establish a network, kind of like what Black Flag did when they just started doing this independent touring circuit across the United States. And they just went from place to place to place. You know how many bands followed Black Flag? And it's not about that. It's just about like everything sucks right now with distribution. It just sucks. Yeah. It's like, so what can you do? The thing you could do is be in control. How can you be in control? Make a movie, make a micro budget film for a very small amount of money, where you could be the content owner and potentially recoup your money, and maybe even make a little profit. But more than anything, seed your movie, send it out into the ether all over the United States. It's like, because that's where people go. Like all the film nuts, that's where they're going. They're going to little video stores. People make pilgrimages to them. Don't you want to be on those shelves? And so that's what I'm thinking. Like just make it super, super cheap for them to acquire, and be like, what do you gotta, take a chance on a tiny little indie, and just start sending my shit out.
Yeah, and I think you're striking on a point that I've pushed a lot with my two movies is, as I've worked on both of these micro-budget films, my whole mentality was, I love garage bands. Like, I've never been happier to watch a band play than literally, like, the fucking high school kids when I was in grade school watching them play in their garage, or the high school bands playing in someone's fucking basement when I was in high school, or even now when I see that happening, I'm like, that's fucking cool. Like, people just making shit. And so what you're talking about is exactly that, the model of getting your fucking vinyl into their shop or getting your CD into their shop.
Right. Except it's just like sort of And it's kind of like a punk rock mentality. Like, I'm thinking about my film as like a 7-inch. I'm not thinking about it as a film. I'm going to press up a pressing, and I'm going to try and send it out, get it out there. And when it sells out, it sells out. And, if I sell it out, then I'll be like, wow, that was successful. Let me re-up, let me do another pressing. But, but the thing was, I was trying to crowdsource the money for that pressing. And that's what that whole show was, that whole Little Talk of Horror show, which is still, there's 2 episodes on YouTube, and I still plan to do more with that material. I just haven't had the time. I've been working on a making of thing to go with the Blu-ray content instead. Sure. And that's turned into its whole like mini, super self-absorbed American movie that stars me, like that.
Hell yeah.
Like that sort of thing.
Dude, and that's exactly what's happening with us is we tried to film Greywood's plot, failed miserably. I got on Rebel. We shot our first feature, and the first feature, I just got the rights 100% back to The Good Exorcist. So now I'm in this weird distribution thing with The Good Exorcist where I'm trying to figure out the exact same thing that you're talking about, where distro sucks, but you find these deals where you're like, well, okay, maybe this distribution would work for this movie, and it's only a 3-year contract, and then we could build a little bit of a base, get it on Amazon, get it on, different streaming services, get it on Troma Now, whatever, build a little audience, and then when I get the rights, I still own the rights at that point. It just it's futile to try to do anything with it. But then 3 years from now, fucking drop it on my own, exactly like how you're talking about, with an actual director's cut, because that's the thing I've never been able to do. I had to adhere to the El Rey rules. Now I don't have to. And the beautiful thing about Greywood's plot is then we went back, and when I realized, oh shit, I have half of a movie here. Why don't I just finish this half of a movie? And it turned into a fucking awesome little creature feature.
That's awesome.
I own 100% of it. I own 100%. And you understand, but most of the audience doesn't understand how awesome it feels to own 100% of your movie.
Well, it's awesome, but at the same time, it leaves you rudderless and directionless, because at the end of the day, as with anything that I find, and this is what I like to say to people as I'm trying to make my second film right now, I say, I only work at the speed of Jeff, which means that I can only work as fast, and that's not to talk about myself in the third person. It just means that I only go as fast as I can go, and sometimes that's like the pace is super lightning quick, and then other times it's like 9 to 5. 2 kids, wife, homeowner, like all these things that come into, trying to start a second side business. Like all these things come into, the peripheral and sort of like muck about. They push me off my path. And
of course.
It's just, it's tough, but I really think that is, to me, or at least that what I'm thinking like the future, at least I'm thinking the future for distribution on a micro budget scale is just to own your film and try to get it into brick and mortar stores. Because if you think about it, like, and it's not so much, it wouldn't really be about profit. It's more about like that punk rock mythology ethos of like getting your self-made thing all over the place, and people, accidentally discovering it. Because that's my hope and dream, is that someone just sees the cover and goes, okay, I'm going to buy this just because this cover looks crazy and I just want to see. Because I've discovered so many movies, the Forbidden Zone, Rock and Rule, so many of my favorite films I've discovered just by going, oh, that cover's crazy. Like I'm in Sam Goody and like looking in the used bin. Holy shit, this has a frog butler and the guy from the small person from James Bond is the king of the sixth dimension. I'm like, and it's directed by Danny Elfman's brother. This has to, on paper, this has to be good, And so I'm hoping that that's the type of like thing that I, just in the way that like people are like rediscovering vinyl, like maybe there's a way for people to like rediscover indie movies this way
here, man,
in streaming.
That's me. I'm the vinyl guy. I just got my first fucking record player.
Congratulations.
And I just started doing my business full time, so I don't have to worry about getting stoned on a Wednesday night. And so I have gotten into vinyl now for the first time, and I'm finding just like how the the ritual of getting up and flipping it and hearing how bands place 3 songs together based on the vinyl, and you're just like, the passion that goes into the vinyl is so crucial and so key. And I hear
sequencing.
I can hear it in music now that I love. The bands that really care are paying attention to that. You can tell these 3 songs play off of each other, then these 3 songs play off of each other, and then they save some crazy shit for the B side of the second record. You're just like, okay,
side B.
Yeah, side B of the second vinyl is always like the weirdest shit. I love it, the ending stuff, and so anyway, and I think movies have that thing now where we're in a weird place because the no-budget movie is, like, extremely possible for the first time.
The entire craft has been democratized, and started with the DSLR, and now it's worked its way up to these pocket cinema cameras. And, that's what I'm planning to do with the next one. This time around, the last one I just was pay as I could with my wages as a waiter, and this time I'm working a 9-to-5 desk job, 40 hours a week. So I'm like, I'm going to just do the weekend warrior thing. But the thing is, it's like, I decided that crowdfunding for numerous reasons was not for me. And part of it was, and again, I have so much respect for people that crowdsource, because it's like a full-time job, and you have to be super committed, and you have to have your integrity has to be pitch perfect. And there's so many people with that integrity, and it just, I am blown away. And it's not that I don't have that integrity. It's perhaps that I do, in the sense that I go, I'm not going to be able to do what is required and still move forward with everything else. So you know what? I'm actually not going to do this. And instead, I'm just going to do pre-production. I'm just going to be in a very, very long pre-production phase by myself, and take a couple of scraps from my paycheck. And what I've done is I've opened up an M1 finance account. It's like a mutual fund.
Okay.
And I invest in dividends. And basically, it's like a savings account that accrues interest. In the stock market. So
this is fucking fascinating. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I do love the idea of, to me, that this is like super fascinating, because I have spent literally 25 years just accruing, buying things as I go, building up my studio. And now this year was the first year where I was able to get a Ursa Mini 4K. I have a couple of other cameras. I finally have all the lights. Wait, you have the
Ursa Mini 4K. Oh, that's different from... I have the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera.
Yeah, this is different than that.
Right?
Mine is... Yeah, okay. It's the bigger one. The footage looks almost identical.
Okay, can I ask you a question? First of all, do you know any... Oh, my goodness. Look at my eyes. I'm getting a camera boner just looking at it. Question. Wait, so do you know a lot about color grading and stuff?
I do know a little bit about color grading.
Wow. Okay, I really need to talk to you about that. Actually, let's talk about that for a minute, because I've been experimenting with the black. I shot Romeos Distress, and I was like, well,
what did you shoot Romeos Distress on? And for the audience that doesn't know, Romeos Distress is a black and white. It's like a David Lynch meets fucking like insane. It's really hard to describe what it is, because it's like a throwback to B horror. It's very similar in some ways to Greywood's plot, except Greywood's plot is very much it's still kind of quasi, I don't know, it doesn't go balls to the wall like Romeo's Distress does. It's just different. I can't explain the difference, but there's like a difference, but there's the same love for like old B movies and the willingness to just go black and white, go fucked up, and tell a fucked up story.
Well, first of all, thank you for your very kind compliments. Those are wonderful compliments, and I'm touched that you feel that way. Secondly, so Romeo's Distress was, so what happened was, I was looking for a cinematographer, and the sound guy, who also co-produced with me, he was the sound guy on The Battery, the Jeremy Gardner, the $6,000 movie.
Okay,
the zombie movie.
Yeah.
So he was this empowering dude, like changed my life in a way, in the sense that he empowered me. He's like, nah, you just shoot it. I was like, me? Because I'm a shooter. But I was like, I can't shoot. Yeah. I can't be a DP. That's not, no way. I can't do that. And he was like, no, yes, you can. It was like going back to the punk rock thing.
Right.
And that was the way we made that movie. He did the sound and I shot the movie, and that was it. It was just the two of us. Yep. He would help me, he would light stuff. I would light stuff. I did all the production design. And so I went out and I acquired the Canon 70D. DSLR.
Yep.
And we shot it, and I did the dumbest thing in the world, but at the same time, it was the fucking awesome. It was the best thing in the world. I love black and white movies. I'm obsessed. And yeah, I was like, I definitely did it because I love black and white movies, as Night of the Living Dead, and as I just was talking about, The Forbidden Zone. And by the way, I haven't watched Greywood's Plot yet, but I plan to. And thank you for sending it over. And I can't wait to. I'm going to watch it for 31 Days of Horror. So I'll post about it at some point, assuming that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
But what I decided to do was, because the thing was, I was like, well, I could never be a shooter because I don't know anything about color temperature, and I don't know, like, I don't want to deal with like color correction and matching shots and yada yada. It's like there's already too much to do. This is not something else I want to take on. But shooting my own film allowed me to never have to worry about where the cameraman was. Because he was me. I'm the cameraman. I never had to worry about where he was going to be. He was here with me the whole time. That's fucking great. Second of all, I didn't have to pay him because he's me. I didn't have to pay him. And third of all, I started voraciously watching films. Another black and white film that I love that you should check out, The American Astronaut by Corey Maccabee, is like, talk about David Lynch Eraserhead love letter. That's what that is. If I had to describe to you what, I've been trying to, marketing Romeos Distress was its own education in and of itself, because I was like, I don't know what this movie is. It's not a horror film, but it's not anything. So I was like, I had to. It's a midnight movie, I guess. Right. It's like and that's why I went to the Nightmares Film Festival, because they had a midnight category, and I was like, oh my God, this is where my movie belongs. This is where I need, and that's a lesson to. Don't apply to every single film festival. Dude. Just aim where you think you're gonna hit it.
That is a lesson for everyone. So many people are just like, fucking film festivals, I didn't get into any of them. I can't believe I didn't get into Sundance. Because you're applying to every little friggin' thing. It's just like, shoot for a couple of fests, write a really engaging cover letter, do some friggin' research, Google is your friend, and explain in the cover letter why your film needs to be in their selection. And the big thing is number one, don't oversell yourself. Don't undersell yourself. You got to be honest as fuck. And on top of that, you have to be honest with yourself. Because here's the thing. We did The Good Exorcist, and we sent it out to a shitload of festivals. And we got into a handful of them. But the comment we consistently got was, our audience wants horror movie. This is a comedy. And then, and it's a comedy, and we just weren't honest with ourselves.
It is a comedy. I've seen it. It is.
Oh yeah, 100%. Sure. And we knew it was. I purposely didn't make it a horror because the whole premise of it was I wanted to make a movie that my wife would watch with me that I would enjoy, and she hates horror movies. So I made a comedy, but there's no comedy festivals. So, me and my ignorance of film festivals, I just sent it to the festivals that I was like, well, this one's a cool one, and this one's a cool one, and this one's a cool one. And we found we get into like underground film festivals, and we get into the local film festival. If it was like the, South Georgia whatever film festival, they'd accept us because they were just like a small film festival or they were just a film festival trying to get movies, but they didn't have a specific genre. The horror festivals didn't want us because they knew their audience would be like, this isn't horror, this is comedy.
Well, I mean, it's just, you know what it is? It comes down to, humility needs to be involved in the sense of, and I love the word humility. I never can get enough of humility. You can get two things. You can either get you can ask for humility, or you can get humiliated.
Right.
Either way, either way, you're going to get that humility. But is it going to come down like a thunderbolt that bonks you on the head, or are you going to ask for it and humbly receive it? And just and ultimately, what does the humility mean? It means to just know exactly what you are. And I was like, what is Romeo? And so what I decided is that it's, and I guess I kind of decided a little bit too late because I was using the word genre bending for a while, and I ultimately decided, and I was calling it like a horror thriller, Shakespearean. It was just all this bullshit. But what I should have started calling it from the beginning, it's Gothic Noire. That's what it is. It's a Gothic Noire. It's like a Gothic Noire midnight movie. And so that's what I just tell people. And the other thing, too, is when people ask you what's your movie about, especially in like film festivals or, you know, when you're writing your cover letter, if you can't say your movie's plot in a single coherent sentence, you've got problems. And so for me, I was like, what is Romeos Distress's sentence? And for me, it was, it's about a boy named James who loves a girl named Jane, and her father's, it's about a boy named James, his unrequited love for a girl named Jane, and her father's sadistic response to it all. That sets up the entire movie without revealing any like spoilers or anything, and sort of like just and people, because people ask me all the time, what's your movie about? And it's like, I don't want to like bore you with 5 minutes and like preambles. It's just like, I'll just tell you in a single sentence, and if you want to ask me another question about it, you can, but if not, you just nod your head and that's it.
That elevator pitch is crucial. And so like it's the same thing for Greywood's Plot and The Good Exorcist. I got used to just doing the pitch, which I don't have memorized at this point because I haven't had to do the pitch in so long. But if someone was to be like, hey, what's Greywood's Plot about? I'd just be two friends whose friendship is kind of at the end go in the woods to hunt for a chupacabra on a creepy man's land. Like I'm just honest about it. Like I just I did not know what it was about. Now I'm intrigued and it's in black and white. Oh, that's what we were talking about, the black and white thing. Sure.
So I don't know anything about color science. I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do, man? I don't know anything about color science, but I'm going to shoot this thing. And then I was like, wait a minute, just shoot it in black and white. You love black and white. I love black and white. Why don't I just shoot it in black and white? And not only that, I started Googling, do I shoot in color and desaturate in post, or do I just shoot it in black and white? And everybody was like, shoot it in color and desaturate in post because, hindsight is 2020, but, or no, that's not the term, whatever it is. Something is 2020.
Yeah. I think hindsight
is right.
2020. Sorry. That's good. Yeah.
Hindsight is 2020, but I decided to ignore that and instead did something a little bit more punk rock, and what I felt was actually even a little bit more in the spirit of, like, say, if you were shooting on film. I shot in-camera monochrome.
Okay.
And there's an in-camera monochrome profile, which basically there's no post-production really in terms of exposure. You are exposing in camera. It's not like shooting raw. Well, I mean, even if it wasn't, but there's still a little latitude. If you shoot in color, you can kind of tweak things a little bit. I shot Greywood's Plot in color, and it's insane, man. The amount of stuff you could do. Yeah. I regret it. I truly, there are so many things that I was forced to just stay with because I didn't, because the thing was, I wanted to look into the viewfinder and go, oh, that's how it looks. Yeah. Great. And I would shoot. And so in that way, there was kind of like a truth to what we were doing. It was kind of like, it was kind of like that filmic truth that, like, that people talk about when they say why because, there's a lot of romantic and a lot of pretentious reasons to shoot on film, but there are a ton of practical reasons to shoot digital. But one of those romantic reasons for shooting film is always, because, man, you got that 1,000 feet and whatever you got to make choices. You only get 2 takes, all this sort of stuff that goes into production that you don't think about.
What's funny, though, is that's what we had to do on Rebel Without a Crew. Like, we had to think like film because the time was so constrained.
You were constrained.
We had to think like, okay, we've only got the same way with film. I've got 2 minutes left on this roll. That's all I have is 2 minutes, and once it's done, we have to move on because we're not shooting anymore. We're not loading another roll for this scene. That's how it was for me because I had the reality crew.
That's freeing because, there's nothing worse than, having, and the thing was, I did something really stupid, another stupid thing that I did because I was trying to think, it was like I was trying to treat this DSLR like it was a film camera. So what I would do is, because SD cards got so cheap and because I was so paranoid about archiving everything, I said, I'm just going to shoot straight to these cards. And once these cards are filled, I'm going to just buy more. Yeah. And so I'd buy 64 gigabyte Transcend cards. I would shoot these teeny tiny monochrome H.264 files that are just like tiny because there's no color information in them. And you could just shoot. You could shoot a lot on one of those things.
Oh, yeah.
And once it was on there, and to this day, it lives on there. So I treated that, I was like, that's my negative. And so I would pull, and this guy who was my co-producer sound guy, he was like, you're crazy, man. Like, that's crazy. What are you doing? That's so dumb. And I was like, I know, but like, I have to do it. And I know this sounds really crazy, but I'm like trying to figure out how to do that with the new one too, because now that they've upgraded the Blackmagic camera with B-roll, you can now shoot very small file sizes in RAW, and you could shoot straight to an SD card.
Yeah.
And so instead of buying 64s and buying 128s or 256s and you know what the thing is, it's like with files that big, then you once again footage becomes precious. It's not like, that was the thing. I could do 100 takes with fucking monochrome H.264 files on a Canon 70D. It was so easy to do. It was just like endless. And what does that happen? It inflates your shooting ratio. So here I am with this ginormous shooting ratio. I have all these choices, and some of them aren't really choices because some of them are just not good or whatever. It didn't come out, or and it's funny too. A lot of them didn't come out because one of the reasons why I bought the Canon 70D is because I was thinking with a video camera mindset, and I was going, it has that dual pixel autofocus. Filmmakers, stay away from dual pixel autofocus. It's bullshit. It's a gimmick. You should friggin' rack focus with your eye. Just do it, man. Just fucking rack. If you're gonna rack focus with your, on your camera, and you're not like, you don't have some big Alexis job, and you're, just sort of doing your thing, just rack focus yourself. And I had a Sigma 30 millimeter lens that opened up to 1.4, and so it was a really fast prime, and it never left the camera, except when we shot with this, we rented a L series Canon Zeiss or whatever the hell it's called, lens. It was a 14 millimeter lens, so it was almost like a fishbowl.
I shoot on 14 millimeter all the time. Like, I love my 14 millimeter.
Yeah, but if you have a crop sensor like the Canon 70D does, it does not fishbowl. It does not fisheye, and you get a warped. And if you notice that, or when they're in the kitchen in Romeos Distress, his face is like weird, and that's because that was shot on a fisheye lens, but it didn't fisheye. And then when I bought the new Blackmagic, I bought a 12. I bought a Rokinon.
Yeah, the Rokinon 12.
Yup,
dude,
Cine lens.
So much of Greywood's plot is shot on that exact lens.
It's a fucking great 2.2. It opens.
Yep.
It's
that 2.2.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to shoot everything on. Now, here's what's really crazy, and I want to ask you this question.
Sure.
Because I've seen you share photos on Facebook from when you were on Rebel Without a Crew of you kind of self-booming. Because your audio sounded pretty darn good for, not really having, or kind of throwing, you're tossing the boom to whoever was around.
It's going to sound so... I've been working on the sound for The Good Exorcist over the past week. It's going to sound a hell of a lot better. So, long story short, I gave the sound, the one thing that I gave to someone else on The Good Exorcist was the sound. So,
I thought, no, but I saw photos of you, kind of holding the boom. No, I did
sound.
I
like the boom mic, the sound, the on-set sound, I did almost, me and Avery did all of it.
Okay.
So we did all the sound ourselves. We had a Zoom F4.
Avery is Father Dan?
No, he's Stanley.
Okay, so, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and Daniel, who plays Father Gill, did a lot of it.
Father Gill. Yeah. Father Gill, that's right.
Yeah, so those two, and Brittany did a lot of sound as well. So everyone kind of did sound on the movie, but we all just ran the same equipment where we had a lot. Right,
well, you just tossed that's what you did. You tossed the boom around. You didn't have a dedicated sound guy, which to me, and what everybody tells you, and the one thing that you're supposed to always remember, especially on a micro-budget film, is have good sound. I was lucky. Nick gave me great sound. You need to have good sound on your micro-budget film.
Yeah, so here's the thing. The sound in the movie is a lot better than what people saw because of the fact that what happened was... Yes.
I thought it was great.
So
it sounded great.
Oh, so what happened was I gave the sound to someone else. It was the one thing that I gave to someone else was to do sound design and sound mix and master in post.
So you're talking about post.
Yeah,
you gave
post.
somebody the post. Yeah.
Yeah, so I gave him the stuff, and he sent me back, like, 2 days before the fucking movie was due, the worst sound mix and master I've ever heard in my life. I would die. So it was the night that the Oscars were on. I remember this so fucking vividly. Like, I can barely remember the day my kids were born, but I remember this like it was yesterday. I was watching the Oscars, and I was just finishing up a render of the movie that I was just going to have to play sound in and then re-render or do the final export. I was going to be done 2 days early. And then the Oscars ended. My wife went, "Are you coming to bed?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this guy's going to send the sound, and then I'm going to start my export, and then I'll come to bed." She says, "Remember to turn off the light in the kitchen." The guy sends the sound. I listen to it, and I instantly am like, this is the worst sound design and mix and master I've ever heard. Now, you have to understand that I had done a sound design of the whole movie. He was only supposed to, like, spruce it up, clean a few things up, add a little bit here and there and whatever, but there were fucking sounds that didn't even make sense. It was completely nonsensical. He took liberties. I walked into the bedroom, I laid down in bed, and I closed my eyes, and my wife said, "You forgot to turn off the light." I punched the wall so fucking hard, I busted my hand, like I busted my knuckle, so my finger, like, still clicks. I know I broke something. I was so fucking pissed. And I got up, and I went, and I just started working on the sound design, and I fixed the sound design as much as I could in 2 days, and then sent it off. So... to me, the sound design could be a lot better, and the audio could be a lot better, but that's... Dude,
it's really... it's exceptional. I think it's exceptional for what I understand of your situation. And so But what it did was it sort of captured my imagination because I was thinking about the logistics of how I will make my next film, and I had this crazy idea. And let's just troubleshoot this right now on live on the podcast.
Sure, I'm in.
Because I have crazy thoughts, but someone like you understands. You would understand. And so let's see how crazy I really am. So what I'm trying to figure out right now is I'm trying to rig. I have a Sound Device Premix 3, and I'm trying to figure out how I can rig this sucker to my cage. Or it probably will hang off my body somewhere on a fanny pack. And then what I'm planning to do is take this Deity S2 microphone, shotgun microphone, and mount it to the top of the cage, like you would any videographer's setup, and then try and frame all of my shots in a way with that super wide 12 millimeter lens, cine lens, try to frame all my shots in a way where I'm getting all of my dialogue super close up and just boom it myself. And I'm thinking, you put everything on a monopod, and it's like, that's not to say I wouldn't have that. Those would be the only dialogue shots, but at the end of the day, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, if I don't have a boom or something, it's like, I'm not using the fucking super wide dialogue anyway. Who's using it? No one's using it. You're using the shit that's super close up anyway. So it's like, what? Because that's when the boom can, when the camera's tight up on someone, then the boom can come in tight up. So it's like, why not figure out a way to boom yourself that way? Why not?
Yeah, that's basically what we did on. That's basically what we did on Greywood's plot. Like, because we often didn't have, it was a lot of times just two of us. So we did literally. So where was your microphone? We literally would do that where in the close-ups, the microphone would I would either have it just, I have a boom pole. So I'd either be like running the camera and running the boom pole over my shoulder. And you're monitoring the sound. And I'm monitoring the sound. So I have a case for my Zoom F4. So I have an F4. Gotcha. And but I also would lav. That's like the equivalent of that's the equivalent of the
Now, question, because here's the thing. My bandwidth is going to be stretched so thin that if I attempt to do this crazy, stupid thing, because I think it's crazy and stupid. It doesn't, but that's what you do. You have to be crazy and stupid to make a movie in the first place. So I'm thinking, well, let me just be a little extra crazy and stupid. So here's my question though. How many times did you use that lav stuff over the boom?
Quite a bit. I use the lav a lot. Like we would set up the lav.
That kind of, why did you choose the lav audio over the boom audio?
A lot of times it was wind because we were outside. So the boom would just pick up a little bit of wind, and so it just was the lav was slightly better. I'm trying to think of specifics. The other thing about the lav was I realized early on that if I used the lav and then in post really paid attention to making sure that my like ambient sound or my room tone was good, like really good. Yeah. The lav was so much easier to do ADR with. So if we were just doing the lav at any location, we could in post, once we knew what the edit was, we knew the line read, we knew how it was supposed to go, I would just throw the lav on my buddies. We'd go outside and we'd have them say the line exactly the same as they said it in the movie 4 times, and we've got 4 takes of ADR that we could try to fit in. And you'll hear, I will be shocked if you notice most of the ADR in Greywood's plot.
I'm really glad that we had this conversation before I see the movie, because I am going to be watching incessantly for these things, not to like criticize you in any way, shape, or form, but just because I'm feverish because the thing is, I decided I do not, lavs create a lot of extra, lavs then require batteries and battery packs and signals, and am I hiding the lav? Is the lav making a lot of noise? Am I getting static? It's like if I'm going to do this myself, and because I'm thinking I'm going to balance this whole thing on a fucking monopod, which is how I shoot. I shoot on a I just balance everything on the monopod, and that allows me to have some fluid movement, and it's really great.
I mean, you probably saw the Greywood's plot pictures. I always have this monopod that I'm running the camera, and
I'll be honest, I don't remember the monopod, but I'll check for it now. But yeah, that's like the way the end scene with Romeo, with the in the basement, we had 12 pages of dialogue to do in one day, and we had all these different setups and shots, and I ultimately threw it all away to just put the camera on the monopod, and we did a master take. And I was just floating the camera around. We got the whole thing in a master take, and then we would punch in for stuff, and we were able to get all 12 pages done in 12 hours. And partially because it was one location, and really you could just hang the boom above everybody and it would have been fine. But it's just like, it was like, it simplified everything. And so I was like, how can I take all these little things that I learned from the first one and effectively change my aesthetic based on necessity. So basically all the framing would be like, 2-shot for everybody to be framed in like some sort of stylistic 2-shot, because that's me just trying to boom the sound in the same way that it was a necessity to shoot in monochrome, even though it was a stylistic choice. And I did end up putting a ton of film grain using that Film Convert Pro app.
I use Film Convert for everything. It was in The Good Exorcist.
Best.
I mean, I use it so minimally, but I just like that little bit.
Dirty. It makes everything dirty. It makes everything feel organic. And I had one guy, when it played at Nightmares Film Festival, a guy, this filmmaker named James Quinn, who is like, he shoots only on film, and like, he just shot the first IMAX short film or something. And he came up to me, and this was a compliment to me. He said, did you shoot on 16, Super 16? And I was like, yo, you really think that was Super 16? And that was, and really, it wasn't the exposure. It was just like that film Converter Pro. Just, you can't. I
don't know, maybe,
tell.
But I think there's something about the fact that because you shot the way you did, it gives it a very authentic look. Now, I'll say this about mine is it doesn't have that authentic look necessarily. You can tell it's digital, even though there's a bit of filmness. Well, although some of it's not, and I'm holding my little secrets as to some things are shot differently than others, and we had a lot of fun playing with different cameras and techniques and some very, very old-timey footage mixed with some very new footage and seeing what would happen. It was a lot of fun. But it's interesting that you bring that up, the black and white thing, going all the way back to the black and white, because I find it fascinating. Right. The reason that Greywood's plot is black and white is it wasn't intended to be when we first went and shot. 3 years ago, we went to film and failed miserably. We shot it in color, but then 2 years later, we went to film more, and Daniel and I are both dads. We aged 2 years in dad time, which is a lot. Like,
I know all about dad time. I got 2 myself. I'm all aware.
So we went from looking like kids to looking like grown ass men in 2 years, and I was just like, dude.
There's also first filmmaker aging too,
and Rebel Without a Crew. So I have all of this age, and you could see it in my face, and I was like, dude, I have bags under my eyes now. I have wrinkles on my forehead. I have adult look. Like, how are we going to match this footage with that footage? And then it was just like, what the fuck? It's black and white. It's called Greywood's plot. It was meant to be black and white from the beginning. We were just too stupid to see it. And then I started just shooting it. I didn't shoot it in black and white, but I have a monitor that I use when I shoot, and I turn that monitor to black and white, so I never saw the movie in color as I was
you mean
shooting.
A smarter? You did a smarter version of what I did. You just actually thought with a brain instead of me who just didn't think with the brain at all.
I'll say this: there was a moment where we almost did make a shift. I seriously considered just going black and white with the movie altogether, but then I realized, potentially, I may want to do a color version of the movie someday. Like, there may
You know what? You
that...
just want the option. You want the option. And, it's funny, talking about black and white, I think black and white, a lot of those sets were the same room that you saw. The Dale's office, the therapist's office, the flower shop, that's all the same room. And that was my apartment building. And so what I just kept doing is I just kept dressing it up into different things. And we took a painter light and hung it outside to make it look like the day. We went down to NYU and shot him going through the NYU and coming out the NYU, that he's in the psychiatrist center or whatever. And then just cut to my apartment. And I think what makes all that work so well, or at least I think it works well, and maybe that's my ego, but I really do.
No,
I think
it does. I would never know that was the same.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought it worked pretty well, but I think that the credit goes to the fact that it was black and white. You can cover a lot of cracks with black and white, and a lot of Romeo's cracks are slightly covered by black and white. Black and white sort of makes it possible to do to black and white sort of makes you suspend your disbelief a little bit more, and that's why I love its power. It had some power, and it started for me. My love affair with it started with Night of the Living Dead, and it's like it makes things feel more epic. And sometimes I'll even desaturate my TV when The Mist came out and they did that black and white version, because I hated the color version. The CGI looks amazing in black and white.
Of course.
So if you're ever having a problem, guys, with watching a movie, or you're hating the CGI or something, just desaturate your TV and it will give you a brand new viewing experience for that film. You can just watch any movie. I want to watch Fright Night in black and white. That's a goal of mine someday. I think that movie will play really well in black and white.
Totally.
And, there are a couple others, but the other thing I just wanted to getting back to the lav thing. Yeah. I'm reading a book about location recording sound right now, and one of the things that they talk about, or one of the things that is mentioned, when you talk, when you're emitting sounds out of your mouth, that's a signal. The closer the mic is to the source of the signal, the better and stronger the signal will be.
Sure.
And you can have a $1,000 Sennheiser, how about a $5,000 Sennheiser shotgun, cream in your jeans mic,
right.
and you can have a dollar store lav, and the dollar store lav will probably give it a run for its money if the signal is stronger than, say, the Sennheiser, which is like 25 or 30 feet away or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so what I think that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about why you were preferring the lav over the boom, because you had a stronger signal because the signal was closer, and that's the rewarding thing. But you lose a lot of qualities. You lose a lot of frequencies.
You definitely do. Oh, yeah. It definitely has a different sound, and I would recommend going with the boom over the lav if you have a lav set up or a boom set up in a way that you're getting good sound. But
right.
I'll also say this, like, some of the best sound in my movie is ADR'd. So, like, knowing that you're going to have to ADR stuff and making sure that you respect the ADR. Now, we shot a sequence of the movie. It's the surgery sequence. Well, it's like 3 sequences, but whatever. It all plays out in one piece.
Right.
That stuff has some of the best ADR work in it and some of the best sound that isn't ADR. But the reason why we were able to blend it okay is because we just went out and filmed it in the same location. And we made sure that it was like the same time of day. We made sure that we were able to get a good amount of room tone. We paid attention to the room tone. And we're able to do that because, you know, you just have to respect the ADR, to respect the process and actually take it seriously. And I don't think a lot of people do. They just slap it on. I mean, I even fell victim to that on The Good Exorcist at a few points based on the fact that I just didn't know what I was doing. But I think you're in the right mindset of learning from what you did and trying out something new, and try it. See if it works. Like, that's the biggest thing, is seeing if something works is the key I've found to success. It's just going like, okay, this works. Let's continue this. Try it out. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? Switch it up.
Well, I'll tell you, the other thing that really makes me nervous is that I'm still trying to figure out color exposure on this Blackmagic Pocket 4 cinema camera, you know. And I've been shooting for a very long time, but I am not like I said, even though I became a DP on this feature, you know, I like to think of myself more than anything, and this is what I went to school for. I am a jack of all trades, master of none. I can do a little bit of everything, and I can have a conversation with you about just about anything, even if I probably can't. You probably could do it 1,000 times better than I can. I can maybe it's like that guy at the party that can kind of figure out how to talk to you about a little bit about everything in some way, shape, or form, right, to keep a conversation. And the thing is, like, I'm really struggling trying to figure out how to use false color the right way. I guess everything's supposed to just be peach, that pink. If you're in the pinks, you're okay.
Right.
And I'm trying to figure out how to color grade, and it's so frustrating, and I want to give up, and I hate it. I hate color grading. Like, I friggin' hate color grading so much.
It's not fun. I'll give you that much. Like,
it's rewarding, but it's not fun.
When you get something done that looks amazing, it is like going back to The Good Exorcist, and
it's time consuming.
It's so
oh my God, the fucking time that, and I'm like, wait, was this a dumb mistake to get this Pocket 4 cinema camera? Because like I just can't. But then, you know, I shot something in 4K recently. And I like suddenly, you know, we're outputting to 1080p, and I'm like, holy shit, this frame was terrible, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, as an afterthought, I'm able to, I can crop this, and I can move this over, and I can blah, 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 and suddenly it looks better. I'm like, I couldn't do that with a DSLR.
I finish everything in 2K, and I shoot in 4 or 6K, because I can then move things around, I can tweak things, and that's a lot of my camera motions for the third feature I'm working on right now, which is called Scumbag. A lot of the camera moves I'm getting are fake camera moves. They're in camera, and then I put something in the foreground.
You're David Finchering it. That's what David Fincher does.
Yeah, so I move it in post, but then in the foreground I'll do like a, you know, blurry object that I do in post in After Effects, so that it feels like there's that parallaxing effect. But this is a movie that I'm making literally by myself. Literally Rebel without a crew. Like, it is because one person, just me. I'm in the movie. I'm shooting the movie. I'm doing sound. I'm editing everything. There's one.
Yeah,
credit.
because having more people makes things more complicated, and that's part of the problem. And you know, Josh, it's such a shame that you live so far away, because it would be so nice to have a guy that like I could use as like an action figure and vice versa,
right.
Where it's just like, can you just do this thing and like do it to like the way that I want it to be done and like blah, 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 blah and call it a day, that sort of thing. I like know exactly how you feel when you just said that about, I just want to, because I think about that all the time. How can I make a movie just by myself? Why? Because I have everything I need right here.
Right.
And that's not, it's not a fucking ego thing. I know I keep saying that word ego. It's just frustration of trying to rally the troops, of trying to get the wheels spinning. It drains you, and you need all the energy you can to make something. But at the same time, filmmaking is supposed to be this collaborative art. There is no I in team, and you're not supposed to be the only guy.
Right.
But it's like, if you don't have a lot of money, if you don't have a lot of time, then you need to have everything on demand and at your fingertips. And the only way you're going to have everything on demand at your fingertips any time of day. Oh, the babies are sleeping. I could do this right now. Well, I can't call Bob, Joe, and Frank because I got to call them 2 weeks in advance. Oh, no, that's not a problem, because I'm me and I can do everything, Well,
and that's my big advice, because I've had to do I have fun doing it, but I've done a bunch of like high school seminars on filmmaking, like, or other filmmaking classes and stuff like that. And the number one thing I tell everyone is, now is the time to make friends that are going to be as passionate about your project as you, because that, for me, like, dude, when you watch Greywoods, man, just watch Greywoods and know that there was 4 of us making that movie. And the only reason it happened is because those 3 other dudes were as passionate about finishing Greywoods as I was.
That was me clapping just now for Josh, because I have had that exact same thought 1,000 times. I never found my partner in crime. I've tried over and over and over again to find partners in crime that have the exact same sensibilities that I do, and it's just about like the goal of. And here's the thing: you said they care just as much as you do, and maybe that's true in that case for that one thing. But I have found truly, or that I truly believe, this is like one of my tenets when people ask me, or when I've been interviewed, or whatever, when I've done stuff in the past. Nobody is going to give a shit as much as you do about your idea. It doesn't matter. And you want to know what? I just said, oh, I wish that you lived closer, because we could be each other's action figures. But at the same time, if I were to help you on something, I may care about it, I may like it, but at the end of the day, all I'm thinking about is I'm helping him because he's going to help me.
Yeah.
And that's what I need, because in order to further my thing, and I'll do anything I can to support this person if I can get that support back, because it's so hard to find someone who is going to, do that thing. And I'm jealous that you got 3 other guys. And the
funny thing is the truth is these guys aren't filmmakers. These dudes were just my friends. Like, it's literally Daniel and my buddy Keith, who have been my best friends. Daniel since kindergarten, Keith since I was 13 days old. And then our buddy Strauss, who just kind of tagged along and had no interest in being a filmmaker until he got on the set. But he didn't have a story, so this became his story. So these 3 guys, I just got fucking lucky that I had 3 guys who weren't ever going to go make their own movie at this point. And so they became so driven to tell this story. And the story evolved. Originally, I was supposed to become a Spider-Man. Like, the whole punchline was I was supposed to become a Spider-Man. And that totally...
A literal Spider-Man.
Yeah. So that shifted as
we started Hey, don't go and spoil it. Don't spoil it for me. I want to watch your movie.
Well, it just shifts. It's not that. So I'm not spoiling anything because I don't become Spider-Man. So... Okay. It's just everything kind of shifted, and they were able to help me tell the story, and we all became passionate. And I'm really fucking lucky, because it's hard to find that.
Well, it's funny. You just brought up another thing that I absolutely have found to be true. In this realm of like making micro budget shit or whatever, it is so freaking important. It's so friggin' important, or I found, sorry, let me rephrase that. I have found that I prefer, or that I am so down to work with someone that has like zero amount of experience, but is totally just like down and interested for the adventure and the journey and being a part of and having passion, I will take passion over technical know-how 1,000 times over. Maybe not for something like sound per se, but like there's so many times where it's just like because the number one thing is like, will X, Y, and Z show up? And by the way, we're obviously talking about, when money comes into the situation, things become different because money controls people. You can control people with money. You can pay someone to be somewhere at a specific time, and half the time, sometimes they don't even show up at that specific time. And it's just like, I don't know.
Well, that's when I cast The Good Exorcist, that's exactly what happened. I cast the character that Avery was supposed to play, Stanley, was supposed to be like an overweight, gross, like portly dude who was going to be obnoxious the whole movie. And I started talking to Avery, and the dude was like the sweetest guy I've ever met. He was goofy as fuck. And I was I just instantly went, well, I'll change the character because I want this passionate dude on my set. And he was down to grab a mic and run the mic or work with lights or whatever. So I just went back and rewrote Stanley that night, and we made him more of a man-child than a portly, gross character. Stanley's everyone's favorite fucking character. And the reason is because Avery cared about that character, and Avery was in it and passionate, and you can feel that in it.
Interesting. Well, I guess I'll know when I wait a minute. That's
in The Good Exorcist. Yeah, in The Good Exorcist.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
I was crossing wires there for a second. I was thinking about Greywood's plot.
That's the problem when you make two movies at the same time. Everyone is
the same time with like similar people. Yeah.
Well, there's also an Avery cameo in Greywood's plot, so. He has a fun little cameo that we shot behind a hotel at a film fest one random day.
That's fun.
Yeah, but that's the kind of stuff we did on that movie, and I think that's something that people have to think about. We literally were accepted to a film festival. I'm not kidding. We were accepted to a film festival. The movie was due to the film festival, and 2 weeks before I decided, 2 weeks before, we had talked about shooting the scene. We never did it, and we just went, fuck it, let's go shoot it. And we added a scene 2 weeks before the movie was due for a film festival. We shot it. I cut it, and we're talking about a pivotal scene of the movie that when you watch it, you will never guess what scene was added because it feels so important to the movie. But with it missing, it didn't feel right. And the movie still made sense, but this scene was so crucial. And the three of us that Keith wasn't in this scene, but three of us, we just decided it was a pivotal scene. We went, found a location, took a Sunday afternoon, and the three of us just went and filmed it. I cut it that night, color corrected it the next day. Daniel came over and did some ADR the day after that. I cut together score based on score that I already had, so I used the score that my dude had already done and made it match the scene. Done.
Do you find that did you find yourself using the boom more, or the boom source of things more often for Greywood's plot if it was shot indoors? Like, what is the indoors is also mostly lav?
For sound design, I think we mixed and matched. Like, it depended on the person, it depended on who the boom was on more. So a lot of times what I would do is if we were doing a dialogue scene, because most of the movie is dialogues, it's all back and forth between two people, and rarely three, actually. There's only a couple sequences where it's three. But if it was between two people, we would have the shotgun on the person who had the most, or the boom on the person that had the most lines, and we wouldn't move it back and forth. We would just keep it on the person, so we got all of that, and then we would have a lav on both of us, and we would end up using the lav for the person who has less lines, more or less.
Wait a minute. So you're telling me that you were using a boom for one in the same scene? You're using boom for one guy and you're using lav for the other?
We were using two lavs and one boom. So
you mix the boom and the lav for the person with more lines, and then you just use the lav for the other guy?
Yep. Often that's what we did. We would mix and match all the time.
Yeah, but didn't, when I was doing we had some lav on Romeo, and I found there were several times too, and that's when I really learned the difference. I was like, whoa. I was like, wow, the lav is clear, but there's no there's no ambience to it.
Yeah, right.
And right, it's hotter, and then the boom sounds better, but the dialogue is, and then obviously you have everything that's with that boom is going to get.
It just really depended on the scene and where we were. And sometimes we didn't use the boom at all if it didn't mix and match at all. Sometimes we did, especially when you're outdoors. We could find ways to mix and match a little bit, or we would just use the lavs. It really depended. And that's all dependent on getting good room tone. Because the room tone covers up so much of the shittiness.
Oh, I know.
And I went and did Foley for every single movement and every single sound. I sat in my basement for 3 weeks straight just doing pants moving and shirts moving and every little tiny sound. And
I sort of skimped over some of that, especially with footsteps. I just skimped over a lot of that. I relied on music for Romeo.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. I did for The Good Exorcist as well, but the Grey Woods, it just sounds so much better based on the fact that I was able to put in that time. And I think it's just...
Right.
I don't think it's a necessity.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it definitely... Oh, no. You're absolutely right. And to harken back to this movie, The Battery, they had an incredible sound design where they went back and they had tons of Foley, and it makes all the difference. It makes all the difference and just adds so much more. And I took note of that. It was just that, bandwidth. I did all the post-production on Romeo and did the mix. It was crazy. I actually did the mix in headphones, and it played at the Gateway Film Center in Ohio on a 100-foot screen, and I was so nervous. But what most people don't realize, if you are thinking about mixing yourself and you haven't studied mixing, the one thing you always want to remember is just remember where dialogue should sit and mix everything around the dialogue. And if everything is in proportion, whether you're mixing on headphones or studio monitors, those proportions will blow up or blow down or shrink down to whatever you're listening to. So if you're listening on a tinny little cell phone speaker, it's the dialogue will be front and center. And if you listen on a big, obviously low end frequencies would be different. And I'm sure 1,000 post guys would be like, shut the fuck up. You have no idea what you're talking about.
But we're not talking about those guys. We're talking about indie people who have to do it
we're just talking
themselves.
About like punk rock. Yeah, we're just talking about like a punk rock mix here.
Yeah.
And in that way, what you really, and maybe there's, remember those post guys that were these figurative post guys that are super professional would actually say, oh, no, you are right about that in terms of like the proportion. Everything needs to be in its proportions. And so even if something is mixed too low, as long as it's proportional to say, if the dialogues and the effects are mixed too low, but the sound, but the if the sound effects and music are mixed slightly too low, but the dialogue is right where it's supposed to be, then maybe everything will work out.
And here's a trick I learned on Grey Woods that has been it's the stupidest trick in the world, but it has been so beneficial.
Lay it on me.
One day I just decided to watch like 3 movies and crank the sound up as loud as I could in my headphones. Like so fucking loud. And I started to learn about like the little ambiences and the little weird noises that they put in, or how loud fucking crickets really are in a scene where there's no crickets. It's just a night scene, and we're in the fucking people's living room. So why are there crickets? But when you turn it down, then you don't really hear the crickets. You just kind of feel them. But if you crank it so loud that it gives you a headache, it almost hurts your ears, you can hear those crickets. So when I started mixing my own stuff, I started adding in all these little layers. And then as I would play it back on my TV or on my monitors or whatever, it just started to feel cinematic. And I was like, oh, that's the trick. Like, the trick is layering it so deep that, you don't have to blow out your eardrums to do this, but you can just layer things deep where you're realizing like, okay, it's nighttime, so let's just put crickets in, but they're so fucking quiet. You can't even hear them. You just feel them that little bit. That's Grey Woods. Like, that's why Grey Woods sounds better than The Good Exorcist is because of those layering of things, and why no one has ever once said to me, you know what, everything was really great in Grey Woods except the sound design could use a little work. That's why no one has ever said that, and that's the key.
Testament. That's testament to the work. So I mean, that's awesome.
Blow your ears out a little bit, though. It helps a lot. It helped me get the sound design to where I wanted it, was to crank it up and really. That's like the initial pass, and then you can mix those sounds, but just getting everything in there.
Well, another tip that I would add, that I would piggyback onto that, and something that I used for Romeo and something that I used in general, you can mix on expensive headphones and you can mix on expensive studio monitors. And the one thing that you are going to realize is that people are going to be playing your thing back on two different devices, on a TV and on a cell phone.
Yep.
And therefore, your mix, you could theoretically, and I did this with Romeos Distress. Romeos Distress is not mixed for theater. Romeos Distress is mixed for my flat screen TV.
Yeah.
That's what I mix it to.
100%.
Once again, I was like, no one's ever going to see this on a big screen, or very rarely going to see this on a big screen. People are going to see this in their living rooms, if at all, or on their computer. And therefore,
same goes for color. Same goes for color.
Yep,
Everyone,
yep.
Like, I have an amazing color.
So do your test on a TV.
Yep.
So that's all you need. You don't need the most expensive gear. What you need to do is it's like, does it sound good? And so the mix that I aimed for with Romeo was aimed for in proportion to the speakers on a flat screen TV. So instead of wasting or not wasting, that's a wrong word to use, but instead of investing thousands and thousands of dollars to do it I say this with quotes, the right way, because it is the right way, but not the right way for everybody. You really just need to mix it for whatever its final output. It's what musicians sometimes refer to as the MP3 test, where most people are going to hear a song in MP3. How does it sound as an MP3? It needs to sound better as an MP3 than it does as than it does on monitors that no one's going to hear.
Right.
I just bought my first pair of monitors for the very first time, and I've used them and they've been very helpful. But I find that the ultimate proof in the pudding is a TV or a cell phone.
Yeah, fucking the Apple earbuds. Like, that to me is that's like the epitome, because so many people are going to watch our silly little movies on Amazon Prime in their earbuds while their wives are sleeping or while their husbands are sleeping. They're going to be watching this late at night at midnight when they can't sleep, and they're like nostalgic
on the Roku,
for a midnight movie.
The Roku remote. That's what I do. I stick the earbuds in the Roku remote, and then I just listen through, and that's the only way I can watch movies. 100%. I mean, I'm doing the 31 days of Halloween in my house, and like the only way to do it is to watch everything with earbuds late at night when no one else is awake to fill my quota for the day. So,
So now I'm going to ask, as we're wrapping this up, what's the next project? What is this project that you're learning to do the sound design? You're going to use your black magic and you're going to learn color correction for?
It's called Wash Away, and it is. I'm trying to market it before it's even made. I'm calling it which is what you should always do.
That's the key. Is market it before it's made.
It is a psychotronic revenge thriller. And I'm actually pulling up my one-sentence pitch because I haven't memorized it yet. Wash Away is about a therapist named Stanley who was given the opportunity for nefarious indulgence and retaliation against a former nemesis who ruined his life years prior. And that literally says everything about the movie without revealing any of the
I know nothing about the movie.
Shit.
I know nothing about it, but I know enough to know that I want to check it out.
Yeah, so that's what I'm hoping to make, and that's what also that whole crowdsourcing campaign was supposed to. The money that was generated from to take this back to the beginning as we're wrapping up, the money that was supposed to fund that was supposed to fund the pressing of the Blu-ray for Romeo was also supposed to be a way of kickstarting the money for Wash Away. So my whole pitch was for this crowdsourcing campaign was buy my film, pre-order my film, all money goes towards the making of the next one, which is a very old hat thing, but it's just a very true, very real freaking statement.
Right.
And it's like people do like to support the arts. I like to support the arts. And it's like, if I hear that I'm supporting the creation of new art, it's definitely a motivator for me. But ultimately, I was like, it was like too many, and that was another reason why the crowdsourcing thing didn't work, because it was like I was setting up like a mousetrap, like, okay, the string goes up here and it's going to tie to this.
Yes, right.
Like this is going to funnel money into this, which is then going to and it's like, dude, just like focus on the movie.
Yeah.
And just like save up the money for the pressing, press them yourself, and try to recoup it by calling up. And there's a few, I don't want to say them because I don't want to speak until there's something there, but there's a couple of exciting potential surprises that I'm really hoping will come to fruition, because it could really open up, in terms of like this idea of this pipeline. That's what it is. It's a pipeline of creating relationships with brick and mortar video stores and specialty interests, Blu-ray shops or whatever the hell they are that are out there. They're out there, folks. You go across the United States, they're fucking out there. You just got to find them. You got to make friends with the owner and be like, hey man, like you know what I'm all about, like why don't you take a copy or two of my movie, I'll sell it to you at cost. I'm not even really trying to make a profit, just trying to recoup my costs here, and hope one of those guys would be like, maybe it'll be a cigar chomping guy, be like, sure kid, I'll take a chance at your
Right.
movie, yeah, why not, and I mean, not literally, probably like really cool people, but like I still like to think of them as that, sure guy, I'll take care of your movie for you, I'll yeah, see, and yeah, that's it.
Give this kid a Star Wars. That's what we used to say on Rebel Without a Crew.
Yeah.
They'd always be like, someone,
Give this kid a Star Wars.
yeah, someone would be like, what are you going to do after this? And I'd be like, I hope someone gives me a Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes, man.
Hell yeah,
I mean,
man. I'm
it's like,
excited. I mean, everyone listening, you got to go check out Jeff's movies or his movie. And then hopefully this, because Romeos Distress is on Amazon, right?
It's on Amazon right now. It's going to be available. Well, I'm distributing it VOD through this aggregator called FilmHub, and so it's actually been picked up in a bunch of different outlets, and I'm waiting for more. But the process takes like a year.
Okay.
I was at another place, and it was a nightmare. So I actually pulled my movie, and that kind of ruined my whole VOD strategy. Because there was no communication, and at least this time when I submitted my movie, I knew what I was getting myself into, and I'm very happy so far with the results. We'll see.
Sweet.
More to be revealed. But yeah, I've lost my train of thought. Yeah, that's it.
No, right now, if you want to go watch Romeos Distress,
yes, Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
And please leave a rating and review on Amazon Prime and IMDb. And one last thing, you go to Frumess.com, www.frumess.com, and that's got all my shit there. And you can watch Romeos Distress there too, and yada, yada, yada. Okay.
Amazing. This has been great, Jeff. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me. So glad we did this.
And until next time, I've been Josh.
And I'm Jeff.
Don't let your meat low, folks.
Meatloaf.